work on your own logo. And if you have any questions, I'll be there live working on logos so you can get any tips and questions that you might have. We're then going to go into an overview of InDesign with Reanna, and she's going to do a resume tutorial using InDesign. And then same thing, you'll have 5 minutes to work on it on your own, ask any questions that you might have. Then the importance of branding with Caitlin, who's here today, and a Q&A for Caitlin or any of us who are here.
Awesome. And then I'll just start off by talking about designing your personal brand. But before that, we just want to emphasize, like, if you have any questions or comments, like, don't be shy. Please feel free to mute yourselves, interrupt us, or type it in the chat, and we will do our best to answer your questions. So yeah, just diving in. So personal brand is a way of establishing and consistently reinforcing who you are and what you stand for, both in your career and in your life. And so I feel like when people think about like a personal brand, they think that it can be like very separate from, you know, your social life or your professional life, like your brand on Instagram versus your brand on maybe another platform like LinkedIn. But there are ways to like interweave it and make it consistent throughout all of your platforms. And the Adobe Creative Cloud is a great way to start, is a great tool to use to design your own personal brand. So some ways that you can create your own personal brand through Adobe would be to use your favorite colors throughout all of your different platforms. I'll show you some examples later on. And then you can use like the same fonts throughout everything. So everything just looks really streamlined. And you can use this throughout all of your materials, whether that be a website you may have, your resume, your cover letter, or even your LinkedIn materials.
So now we're going to move into a brief overview of Adobe Illustrator. So one of the fun things about Illustrator is that it works in vectors and not pixels, so your design can be resized to go pretty much anywhere. So if you've ever seen like billboards or large posters where everything looks kind of blurry or pixely, that's because they didn't make it in Illustrator and they used a platform that you couldn't just resize your logo or design to do. So any of the logos you'll make today in Illustrator, you'd be able to use on any printed materials, websites, apps, video, animations, pretty much anything you choose. You also can use shapes, color, effects, and typography. So like Reanna mentioned, this is super important with personal branding because you can use the same colors and typography throughout any of your personal brand materials. And then just a fun fact, it's consistently ranked the best overall logo design software. So down here I have just a quick overview of the tools that we're going to be using today, the selection tool and direct selection tool, which are super important and some of the main ones I use, and then shape builder tool, fill and stroke tool, and pathfinder tool. Just if you look at these now, you'll be seeing them a lot later today in a few minutes, and I'll be giving you a more in-depth tutorial of what they all do. Then again, just why use Illustrator? Microsoft Word and platforms like this have so many like preset things that you can use, like word art filters and just the usual type and text filters. But Illustrator allows you to really take your logos and take your text up to the next level and really make it you. So you can use Illustrator to make your logos a lot more personally branded and a lot more advanced and professional. So with that being said, I'm going to share my Illustrator screen now. Please let me know if anything goes wrong with this. I don't know why I'm having trouble sharing screens today. All right, can everyone see my Illustrator screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Reanna. So I'm going to start this off like if you've never opened Illustrator before. So if you do have some experience, I apologize if some of this is kind of redundant and stuff you've done before. But we're just going to start off with opening a new Illustrator document, which will bring up this page. So I'm going to name it personal logo. And the size of the document that I usually use is 1080 by 1080 pixels, which is the standard size for like an Instagram post. But this is also a size that lets you convert it to the web or any resume, usually an 8 by 10, without it getting blurry or getting messed up at all. And we're going to make it 2 artboards for today because we're going to be making 2 logo examples. And then the only thing that I'm going to do different from you guys today is I'm going to close this out because I already have my document made, and you're going to click create and have a new one. So I'm going to close this out and show you the 2 logos that we're going to be designing today. So I use my initials and Reanna's, and as you're doing this, feel free to use your own initials or make exactly what I'm making here to just work on designing your logo. So the first thing we're going to do here is start with the text tool, or the type tool over here. and just click anywhere on the artboard. And I'm going to type in my initials, which are L and M, and then I'm going to go over here to the selection tool and click on the corner of it, hold down Shift, and just drag to make it bigger. And the important thing about doing this is holding down Shift, because holding Shift keeps it proportional and keeps it from just like changing shape, which is what happens if you don't hold down Shift as you're doing this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is turn these text or these letters into shapes instead of letters that you can type on. So to do this, you're going to go up into the top bar here. I hope you can see this as I'm sharing, but if you go into type along the top bar of your computer and create outlines, it turns your letters into shapes instead of text, which makes it easier to work with and easier for them to move around and change shape. So once I have them as shapes, I'm going to move into the direct selection tool instead of just the normal selection tool. And this allows me to select just like the corners of my letters to really change their shape. So for the L here, I'm going to make the top taller and I'm going to make the bottom wider. As you can see, I ended up having the L and the M kind of on top of each other here. So you can play around with this a little bit just to resize it the way you want it to be. So if I have my L and M like this, the problem is they're still grouped together. So I'm going to go back up to my top bar and hit Object, Ungroup so that they're separate. And from here, I can just move the M to be on top of the L and use my direct selection tool, again, just to make any tweaks and changes to make it look exactly how I want it to at the end. So I just adjusted those a little more to look more like what my end product should look like. And I'm then going to regroup them so they stay together. So now the fun part where you get to choose your own branded colors. If we go over here in the swatches panel, which if you don't have that up, you can get it by going to Window and then Swatches. And it'll show you all the different colors that Illustrator has come with preset or any colors that you might want to add. So to do this, you can just double click on the one that you want to change the color of, choose a color from the swatches, and make your letters whatever branded colors you've chosen for your own personal brand. The next thing that I like to do that I think is usually helpful with making a personal logo that makes it really work with anything you're putting it on, especially with resumes, is just put a circle around your letters, because the circular logos really work well with resumes or profile pictures on a lot of social media accounts or websites. So to do this, I'm going to go over here into the right-hand side to the ellipse tool. If you can't see that right now, it might show up as the rectangle tool, but to see the ellipse tool, you just need to right-click on that and go down to ellipse tool. And then to make your circle, you hold down Shift and just click and drag. And a lot of times it probably will come up filled in, but to switch that, you just have to go over here and click the little arrows. So this switches it from the colored fill to the colored outline. Then again, we can go over to our side panels and go to the stroke panel. Again, if you don't have any of these up that I'm ever mentioning, they should be under Window, and then you can find the one that I'm talking about. So right now, stroke. And you can just increase the size of this till you get to like a width of the circle that you like, that you think goes well with your letters. So I'm gonna leave it right there. And then I'm also gonna go back to my swatches and change the color of the outside circle. So I have here a good example of just what it's like to play around with the text using the direct selection tool after converting text into shape, which is one of the easiest ways to take your initials and make them a fun logo. I'm now going to show you just another way to use your initials and overlap them and use the Shape Builder tool or the Pathfinder tool. So we're going to start this out pretty much the same way we started the LM one, and just use the text tool and write in Reanna's initials and then click and drag here to make them a lot bigger. And for this one, I didn't want to hold down Shift when I wanted to make them a little bit taller. So if you don't hold down Shift, you can make them like tall, squeeze them a little bit, and just change like the proportions of the letters. So once I have these about what I want them to be, I'm going to do the same thing I did with the L and the M, where I go to type and I create the outlines. And this time I'm also going to ungroup them now so that I can move the R and the A separately. So one of the fun things about this logo is that I have the R and the A overlapping. So this is the point where I'm going to move it to about where I think I want it to be overlapping. And if you want to make the outlines colored in right now, just so you can see exactly how much they're overlapping, you can do that. So I now have it about here. I'm then gonna fill it back in so that it's easier to use my other tools in the future. And you don't have to do this, but I'm gonna make 2 copies so I can show you with the Pathfinder and the Shape Builder tool. But the first one we're gonna do is the Pathfinder tool. So for this, you just need to select both the R and the A at the same time, and then go over into your window and make sure Pathfinder is up, which I have it down here. And you can see it shows a bunch of options for what you can do with the shapes that are overlapping. But for this one, we want to do the exclude one. So this will delete any parts where your 2 shapes are overlapping. So now you can see it kind of gives a cool effect where there's no part of the A showing where the R is overlapping it. And if you want this to be your logo, you can keep it like this, maybe add a circle, up to you. Again, you have full creative freedom on whatever you'd want your personal logo to look like. But I'm just showing you a few ways you can make this happen. Another one with the overlap is to select both of these and use the Shape Builder tool. So for this, you're going to go over into the left-hand side and click Shape Builder. And you can then scan over the middle part where they're overlapping, and you can see it gives it like this cross-hatching pattern, and you can just click on it to create a new shape. So then once we go back to our selection tool, you can see that you can select the middle section, and it's a different shape than the R and the A. So then from here, you can color the middle section differently than you can the R and the A. So it creates sort of a transparent look and makes the letters look like they're overlapping, which is what I end up with for my final logo. And then like we did with the L and the M, I'm going to make the circle around the R and the A using the ellipse tool and switch it so that the color is filling the outline instead of the inside, and increasing the stroke. I think it was about 53 on the last one, so you can type that in here if you want it to be the same. Actually gonna make it a little bit less. And I'm gonna make it a little smaller and position it so that the R and the A are centered in there. Then I can again change the color of the outline to match what I want my final logo to look like. So now I've shown you 2 ways you can use text and your initials to make a fun, exciting personal logo that just stands out from the rest. And this will then get added on to the resume that Reanna is going to show you in a few minutes. So we're going to give you 5 minutes right now just to play around in Illustrator and work on your own personal logos. If you have any questions while I'm going through or while you're going through this, I'll still be working here and be happy to answer them in the chat, or just feel free to unmute yourself. But I'll just be sharing my screen, like working through this a little bit so you can see some of the other things you can do with some of the tools here.
Do you guys have any questions?
Is there a way to click, undo or back, or a way to fix it?
Yes, for sure. The easiest way to do this, if it's like a mistake you just made like one step before, is to just hit Command Z. So if I accidentally like drag the circle over here, I can just hold down Command and click Z, and it'll move it back to right where it was. And if it was like even a few steps back, you can just keep Command Zing it, and it'll keep undoing everything you had.
And then where is that ellipse tool?
Yeah, so it might be a rectangle tool for you when you first start out. I think the default is to show a rectangle over here. But if you right click on it, you can just go down to the ellipse tool, which is like the 3rd one down. Did that help you?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
Lexie, where do you use your logo? Like, do you just have it on your resume or do you kind of like use it throughout all of your materials?
Yeah, so I actually have it. It's on my resume and it's also on my personal portfolio website and my own portfolio Instagram. It's the profile picture. So I've made it a circle so it fits for all of these things. And I've had a few people comment about how they think it's super cool that I use the same like branding throughout all of my resume and my portfolios. What about you?
Yes, yeah, I actually have never really tried to make one. So this tutorial was even really helpful for me, but I will definitely start adding it to my things as well. So thanks.
Yay. All right, well, I think it's been like almost 5 minutes. So if no one has any more questions, I'm gonna hand it over to Reanna and let her start sharing and going through the InDesign tutorial with the resume design. So if that sounds good, if anyone has questions, just throw them in the chat from now on.
Yes, awesome.
All right.
Yeah, does anyone have questions before we move on to the next section? There's no rush, so feel free to shout them out. No? Okay, no worries. All right, let me start sharing my screen. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about resume best practices, and then I'll show you how to create a really cool custom resume through InDesign. So if you are still on Illustrator, that's totally fine. But if you want to load up InDesign in the background so you can start working with that as well, that would be great. So just some resume best practices. Resume formats are very industry specific. So say like a resume for someone who wants to apply to an engineering job may look very different for someone who wants to apply to a marketing role. So just keep that in mind. A rule of thumb is to usually keep it to one page, because recruiters usually only spend a few seconds combing through. And so if you overwhelm them with more than one page, they're unlikely to really read it or like get to the important information that's at the end. And so you should also only list your most relevant experiences and always use numbers wherever applicable. So for example, if you worked in like social media marketing and you did like social media campaigns and you're able to increase their followers by like 100 people, you should definitely add that. So instead of saying increased followers for whatever Instagram, you should say I increased the follower count by 100 people. And that really shows the person reading it, like how much work you did, and it's really important to use. And then the most common format is reverse chronological. So you would put your most relevant experiences first and then kind of work your way down. I personally don't really have mine like that because I have a lot of things that I'm doing at the same time. So it's not like a hard set rule, but another way that you could also do it is to list like something that's most important to you at the top, or you can make them specific to the role you're applying for. So again, if you're applying to a social media role and you have a social media experience, it might be beneficial to list that as the first thing. So that's the first thing the recruiter will read. And then, yeah, make sure to cater your resume to the job you're applying for. I know it can be really tedious to keep having to edit things, but sometimes like the extra 5 minutes you take can really make the world of a difference when someone goes through that, because it shows them that you really took the time to cater your resume to whatever job that it is you're applying for. And then there's a bunch of different sections that you can include on your resume. So make sure to choose the ones that best represent you. So if you've had a lot of leadership experience, maybe that's something you want to include, or different activities or societies you're involved in at school. If you have any special skills, like you're really good at Microsoft Excel, or you're really good at Illustrator like Lexie, a skill section is another great thing to include. Or if you have any certifications, like if you have like a Google AdWords certification, that would be also a great thing to add. Or just like any fun interest. At the end of the day, you're human, and you are a full person outside of your academic and professional experiences. So it's also fun to add like the cool things you do outside of work. And then I just want to touch upon how to describe your experiences, because I know a lot of students can struggle with this. And so this is kind of like the section where like you write all the bullet points. And so this is how they teach it at our University of Minnesota Undergraduate Business Career Center. So I'm not sure if you've learned a different method, but this has really worked for me. So we use a strong skills statement to describe our experiences, which is an action verb, and then you have the details in the middle, and then you have the result at the end. And then it's always good to have 2 to 3 statements per experience, because if it's important to you, you should have like a multitude of different things that you did for them to talk about. And so this is an example that this is something that I actually have on my resume for this Adobe Ambassador experience. So formulate is my action verb. So a marketing plan, strategizing tactics on how to shape the program and carry out the initiative. So those are the details. And the result is capturing at least 250 student leads, 45 clubs, and 5 professors interested in learning more about Adobe. And so I think that this is a really concise way to describe my roles for this position. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. And it does take a lot of time to type these out, but it's really worth it in the end. And it shows the recruiter that you put in a lot of thought and effort into your resume. So it's definitely worth it. And so now diving into InDesign, it is a typesetting software that's best used to create works such as posters, flyers, brochures, magazines, newspapers, presentations, books, ebooks, and resumes, of course. So it is very similar to Illustrator, but it's focused more again, like on these different items as opposed to making like logos and things like that. And so, so the tool we'll be using today, they're very similar to the ones that Lexie used as well, but they are the selection tool, the text tool, the line tool, the fill and stroke tool, the rectangle tool, and then the frame tool. And so, yeah, using InDesign for resume design has really changed the recruiting game for me, and hopefully it can help you level up your professional game as well. And so I've used it to create fun things like my email signature right here. And so that's on the bottom of every email I send. And then this is actually my resume. And then this is a template that I have created for all of you as well. And so I will send a file with these different templates in just a moment. But yeah, again, InDesign really helped me. So this is what my resume used to look like before using Microsoft Word. And then this is what it is with InDesign. And it's really like wild to think about because all of the information is the same. But personally, I think that the InDesign one is much more visually appealing than this one on the left. And so, you know, having that thought, putting thought into it can really make a big difference. And then I just want to point out that I put in a little pop of color here because I thought that was appropriate within my field since I'm going for more creative roles. But again, if that doesn't really align with your industry, keeping it black and white is totally fine as well. And oh, sorry, let me just switch sharing to to my tutorial. And then first I'm going to share the resume templates with you in the chat. So if you want to open up InDesign and then you can access this folder, let me know if you're unable to. I also threw in my email signature template in there as well. We're not going to be covering that today, but if you want to create your own, you're welcome to use that. And so I'll give you a moment to open those up and download those. Let us know if you are having any trouble. Okay, and yes, Grace, the glow up, I know it's probably one of my favorite glow ups. So I am excited to see yours too. And yes, so I believe that this is template number 2. And so this is, you should be able to access the same thing. And I really like these templates because you don't have to design your own, but it's actually quite simple to design your own as well. But I think this is just a really good starting space. And so this is the awesome logo that Lexie made, but I'm actually going to delete that so I can show you how to insert it. And so again, this is our frame tool, and then you can use this to, so it's literally like a frame. Like if you want to put any images in it, that is what this is. And that is different from creating different shapes, like using the rectangle tool. So keep that in mind. Sorry. And so if you want to place in an image, you can literally like drag and drop it into here, or you can go to the top bar, hopefully you can see this, and go to File, and then you click on Place. And I will pop in the logo that Lexie made for me. And so if you can, like usually if the dimension is off, it's totally fine. You can resize it. So how you do that is you would double click on it, and then this orange frame that you're seeing is the proportions of the image that are inside of that frame. And so to change that side, you would click Shift and hold the corner down like Lexie did as well. And so Shift is really important because it stops the dimensions from moving. So if you would just click like one of the other things, it would kind of warp the shape. And usually for the most part, you would want to keep that. And so, yeah, if it's a really big file, you kind of have to take a few tries to just like move it around. But I think this is really cool. Like I said, I've never had a logo on my resume before. And I really think that this would just be another great way to showcase my creative side and show them that, you know, I really put an effort into my materials. So, you know, that would also mean that I put an effort into the job, but that is one thing to add. And then you can also do like place your own photo and then move the logo somewhere else. So I'll show you that as well. And so I I have a really, oops. Oh yeah, and so if you click on it once and you delete it, it's gonna delete the whole frame. So make sure that you make sure that it's just the orange frame and that's the size of the image, and then that will just delete the image from the frame. Hopefully that makes sense. But I am just gonna put in my my headshot because that is something that I really like. A lot of people don't have their photos on their resume, and I don't on mine, but if that's something that you want, that's totally fine as well. And so again, it came out really big, so we're gonna hold down Shift and to make that smaller. And then let's see, here we go. So I really like the frame tool because it sets the dimensions for you, and so you don't have to crop the image. And so it's a bit easier to use. And so that is mine. And then I'll just walk you through the different sections of this resume template. But so I would put my name here and then write a short description about myself. So something along the lines of like, I'm a passionate marketing student looking for, like social media roles or things like that. A lot of, again, some people don't have an about me section, but if that's something that resonates personally with you, you can definitely consider adding it in. And then some good things to add for your contact information would be your address or just like the city and state that you're located in, your phone number and your email, and then maybe even like your LinkedIn link, or if you have a portfolio, that would be a good place to put the link for that as well. And then for skills, I really like this because I was able to make these cool little shapes, and you can do that by using the rectangle tool. And again, it's very similar to what we saw in Illustrator, but I literally just made like 2 rectangles and put them on top of each other. And then, so for each skill that I have, I would just change the shape. So if my first one was say like Microsoft Excel, like I think I am more than average in Excel, so I would make that bigger, and it just shows, it's just a fun visual way to show them like how much skills you have in a certain area. And again, if you don't feel comfortable listing specific things, that's totally fine, and you can delete that. Or if you don't want to put the skill levels, you can just do bullet points of some of the things that you do have skills in. And then for interest, you can put fun things. Like I think on my actual resume, I have that I like scuba diving, I like hiking and running. And while they don't necessarily apply to the job, it really makes me seem more human and shows them what I like to do outside of my professional experiences. And then going up here, I have a spot for your education. So you can put your university, and then if you're in a specific college within your university, and then the degree that you'll be getting when you graduate, and then your GPA. I know there's a bit of like, I don't know, a lot of people have opinions on if you should put your GPA or not, but I know a good rule of thumb is if you have over a 3.0 to add it, and then obviously if the application asks you for your GPA, you should put it on, but otherwise I think it's totally okay leaving it off, and usually your experiences will speak for themselves. And it's always nice to include what you're studying, so your major and then any minors you may have, and the location of your college, because like Clemson University, that is, you don't have like the actual like state within the name, so some people might not know where that is, so it's always good to say where the location is. And then your grad date, some people put their whole span of like when they started college, but I personally think that it's okay if you just put like May 2021 or whatever your expected graduation date is. And then for your experiences, so again, like I talked about earlier, these description bullets are where you would put your strong skills statement, and then you would have your start date and end date, or you would just say present to if that's a current job that you have, and then as well as the company name and the location of your position. And then down here, I would probably put like leadership for myself because I'm involved in a lot of cool different student organizations, and I do want to separate having like my professional experiences at the top with my student organizations within school. So that's just an idea. And let's see, is everyone doing okay so far? Do you have any questions? No? Okay, no worries. And I just want to show you a cool other few things. So you can change, if this font isn't for you, that's totally fine. Again, a font is another way to showcase your personal brand. And so if you go here to the right, you can actually change it. And Adobe has a bunch of different fonts to choose from. And if you don't like any of these, you can actually go on to Adobe and download more fonts. So like if you go to find more, you can do that too. And they're super easy to install, and they're already free. So that is really nice. But usually I like doing a mix of like a cursive font for like my name or something, and then like a regular font. But again, you don't have to do that. And then if the font has like different like faces, so like if you want to make it bold or italicized, that would usually show up here. So this font doesn't look like it only comes in regular. And so there's actually a few ways you can kind of like manipulate that, which is really cool. And so let me see if I can find it. Oh yes, and then yeah, Lexie just shared the link to the Adobe fonts if they don't have something that's pre-installed that you already like. But oh yeah, so these are just other tools like for spacing down here. So right now I'm highlighting the name, manipulating that point. And so these are other things that you can use as well. Let's see. What was I talking about? Sorry guys. Oh, there you go. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So say like if you want to make it italicized, but that's not an option, you can manipulate it here. And so you can actually like even choose like how italicized you want it, which I think is really cool. And it just gives you a lot of functionality. And that, again, you can't do that within Microsoft Word because everything is preset. And then you can even make if you want to make the letters wider, you're able to do that through here as well, or make them like taller or smaller. And then if you want to make it, you want to give it like an outline or make it more bold. And again, that's like not that's not an option. You can go up to stroke and actually click on that. It doesn't work very well with this font, but that is also an option too. So even though there's not a preset option, there's so many different ways that you can manipulate it yourself. And with that, yeah, those are like the main things that I wanted to show you. So if you have any questions, let me know. And again, if you want to create your own resume template, you definitely can too. Okay, so I got a message saying that I have a notification that the template uses fonts that are currently unavailable on my computer. Should I skip, activate, or replace the fonts? So you can activate it, and usually it'll like install it automatically for you, which is really nice. But if that doesn't work, you can just skip it. It'll just have like a random font on there, but you can always change it out. So hopefully that answers your message or answers your question. And then yes, Max, we'll be sharing the templates after as well. So I'll have Lexie email that file out to you. But yes, yeah. And let's see. So another way to like to put in your own personal branding is to use your favorite colors. So even for this block, so I will show you how I made this. So similar to Lexie, we use the rectangle tool, and then you kind of just like, draw it out. And then there's no fill. So you can actually access the fill and stroke either here with the toolbar on the left or also under properties on the right. And so it's up to you what you prefer, but it does the same thing. And so you can choose a fun color. And if you click on, if you click on arrange and you can send it to the back, it'll be on the back of things. And so it's all the way in the back. So you just see it right here. But that's another fun way to add in these blocks. So that's how I was able to do it and break it up. And then if you don't like that color, you can always change it. So yeah, the color picker is really fun. And then if you're really like a color nerd and you have specific hex codes, you can put that into here. And so what I like to do, like if I'm going for a central theme, like not just for my resumes, but for anything, like I want all earth tones, I'll go on Google and just type in like Google or earth tone like hex codes, and a bunch will show up. And then I use those specific codes and insert them into here to get the color I want. And then this is also a really cool tool. So this is like an eyedropper button. Screen. Okay, sorry, I don't know what that's doing, but you can use this eyedropper tool to actually pick up the color, which is really cool. And so you have that hex code as well. And then, yeah, so there's a bunch of fun different things. And then if you use this bar on the right, you can control like the different tones and everything. And so the possibilities are really endless. And yeah, that is, those are the main things I wanted to go over with you. And then again, we'll just give you like the next 5 minutes to work on it. And then if you have any questions, feel free to shout out. Yes, Max, I shared it with everyone. Let me share that again, this file. And then if you weren't able to access it, if you're unable to access it, let me know. And then I also added like the fun little, what's it called? The email signature template too, if you're interested in making your own email signature. But I really love like how easy this is, because then you can just save it. And whenever you need to edit your resume, you can just open it back up in InDesign and, easily switch things out. And I think maybe my favorite part about using InDesign over Microsoft Word is that you can align things perfectly. Because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like in Microsoft Word, whenever you click like the one space or like enter, it shifts the entire thing, and it can be so frustrating. And with InDesign, you don't have that issue. And so it really just saves you more time in the long run. Like I know it can be a bit of like an intimidating program at first, but I think once you play around and get to know like how to use it, it really is a helpful tool. But yeah, we'll give you up to 6:45 Eastern time to kind of work on it and shout out any questions you may have. And then I'll hand it over to Caitlin to go over her points of the presentation. Are there any questions?
It'll actually be 5:45. Sorry.
5. I'm so sorry.
We're in different time zones, so we've been confusing that all this week, planning all our Zoom meetings.
Does anyone want to share what they're working on? It can either be like your logo or your resume, if you're brave enough. If not, no worries. That's okay.
Yeah.
But going back to my point of like tailoring your resume to specific roles, like I know that can be really tedious, but a way to do it is to like save different versions. So say like for me personally, I'm marketing and analytics. I'm interested in both like the creative side and like the back end data side. So I have like multiple resumes that I tailor to specific jobs. So if they're more like analytics based jobs, then I'll use my analytics resume. And then if they're more creative jobs, I'll have my creative resume. So that way I don't always have to go back in and change it. And usually like you have a direction of what types of roles you are applying to. And so that way, yeah, it'll save you a lot of time. But again, I really think it makes a world of a difference if you go in and you tweak it to kind of match the job description. And yes, I see Caitlin shaking her head yes. So that's good.
I know I've had my camera off this whole time, but I've been like shaking my head in like agreement with everything you both have been saying. So now you can actually see me doing it. But yeah, this has been so amazing. And I mean, I'm just always so fascinated, and I'll talk more about this too, but I'm just always so fascinated in joining these events and seeing how creative, you can get with something like your resume, your cover letter, or your portfolio, because it really does help. So thanks for planning this.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Awesome. And so I will just give another minute for everyone to keep on working. And then again, you can use like the same thing for creating your cover letters. I don't have a template for that, but usually I would say it's pretty easy to make since it's more of a letter format, and you can insert your photo and use all the same fonts. And so it's just really nice because then everything looks streamlined. And so, yeah, if you guys like, I'll send my LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect, but you can see like throughout my portfolio that's on there and throughout my LinkedIn cover letter or my LinkedIn banner, I have the same exact fonts throughout. And while it's like a little thing, I do think for me personally, it's something that I'm really proud of because I took the time to really make sure that the colors and the fonts like showcase who I am as a person. And it makes me feel really good when people notice too. They're like, well, everything looks the same. And so it really does make a difference. But with that, does anyone have any questions before we close off this portion of the workshop? No? Okay, no worries. And then with that, I will hand it over to you, Caitlin.
Perfect. Thank you. So I don't have a presentation to share, but I just kind of wanted to talk about like my experience. Well, actually, first I'll introduce myself. I know they did a little bit in the beginning, but I am Caitlin, and I'm a university talent partner here at Adobe. And I recruit for both technical roles and also design focused roles. So I have not only looked at multiple resumes throughout a day, but also portfolios as well. And as well as LinkedIn's. And I love the fact that this workshop was really centered around branding and kind of your own personal brand, because it's so essential, especially when applying for internships and university grad roles. And the reason that I say that is because, one, university recruiters, we like receive multiple applications from so many people. And so a lot of times, like, everybody kind of has the same layout, the same template, and everything kind of starts to mesh together a little bit. So whenever you do take the time to really put your own brand on something, to really like make it creative in your own way, is so helpful in having you stand out from other applicants. Because I one, as a recruiter, really appreciate when I see that extra mile that you go into like really tailoring it. But also I know that hiring managers really appreciate it too, because we are more so looking for like, oh, okay, perfect, you have the experience, you have the skills, but the hiring managers are going above and beyond that. And they want to see how you're bringing your full self into how you like represent your information. And so I definitely know that that is something that they have highlighted to me. And then I'll speak specifically to design focused roles or like creative focused roles, like what they were saying earlier, like, you know, you wanted to make your resume a little bit more tailored because it is, your focus is creative. I think that that's essential. Like for design specifically, design is all about like telling your story, being genuine, really getting across like what it is you're passionate about and why you want to join this position as well, and how both of those passions really line up. And so, yeah, taking the time to do that, not only to your resume, but to your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great. Hiring managers love looking at your LinkedIn's, even your GitHub. So if you're more of a technical student and that's kind of how you express your creativity, with showing your projects, with showing just what you've been involved in. I think that it's just like so essential to be able to really find that passion, because a lot of times, like when you have a passion for something, you know, specializing in the specific role that you're applying for, we pick up on that. So whether that be in the conversation, whether that be just, you know, looking at your experience and just, you know, your interests, I think that it's really essential. So going back to kind of your brand, I think when you're recruiting, when you're interviewing, you always want to make sure that you're kind of staying true to yourself. And I'm sure that you've heard this before, but an interview is not just us interviewing you, but you also interviewing us, to make sure that both your values kind of match up with the company's values, and the way that the company brands itself also matches with the brand that you have for yourself. So definitely you'll want to make sure that you keep that in mind when like I said, you're not only applying but also interviewing for positions. I also love the resume tips that were highlighted. I am full fan of all of those tips that were represented. And so when we're talking about brand and we're talking about telling your story and your experience, really taking that extra, like, you know, 15, 20, 30 minutes to apply your experience and your skills back to the exact position that you're applying for, or at least like the bucket of like, so designers or marketing or analytics, like really trying to tailor your resume as much as possible is just so important and so nice to do. Hiring managers really appreciate that when you take that extra step, because to them, they're being able to see, oh, okay, great, like from what I was looking for in a candidate, like this is how they relate back to that, or this is, you know, what experience is relevant towards my team. So just from a recruiting sense, like that is so beneficial and really will make a difference when you're applying. That's almost second, I would say, on top of like showing hiring managers and recruiters your experience and your skills. Like when you take that time, it really, really sets you apart from other candidates, because a lot of people are just kind of like bulk applying. So yeah, I would say just overall, like in terms of brand, like really make sure that you're staying true to who you are. And again, you tell your story, and whether that be on all platforms. So I love Lexie, that you have the same logo, the same colors on your portfolio, your resume, your LinkedIn. Like that is a great way for, like, if I were, doing sourcing or something, and I were just able to like pick up on your logo or pick up on the colors that you use, like just having that consistency, I think is so cool. But yeah, that was a little bit on what I wanted to share, just on the importance of having a brand, and just how much like it does make a difference to the people who are doing the recruiting piece. So love that you invited me to this session, and I'm happy to answer any questions too. But I just like that you both are sharing, how easy it can be to really have yourself stand apart from others.
Thanks, Caitlin. I actually have a question. So I always thought that like hiring managers and recruiters were just like an interchangeable title. So do you mind describing like what the difference is? Because I know that a candidate interacts with both of those people throughout the process.
Yes. You said the difference between a recruiter and a hiring manager, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so a hiring manager, they are pretty much the managers that you're going to have when you join an internship, when you join a position. So the hiring manager is the person that is hiring for somebody on their team. The recruiter, in that other sense, is I work with the hiring manager to figure out what is it they're looking for in a candidate. When do they want them to start? What type of location do they want them to be in? And then I take all that information, and I'm the one who's actually going out and looking for candidates. So whether that be if you apply like on our careers page, if you apply through LinkedIn, if you apply through like a specific university platform like Handshake, typically recruiters are the ones who are going out and they're really kind of the ones who you have most interactions with, especially the initial interactions. You'll probably have like a call with a hiring manager, or they'll be in an interview panel, but that's a little bit of the difference. So recruiters are the ones who are like going out finding candidates. Hiring managers are the ones who you would be working with like in that position, who are looking for someone to fill. Hopefully that helps.
I also had a question for you, Caitlin.
Yes.
When you're looking at like resumes, cover letters, and portfolios, is there one that is like more important initially, or does it kind of depend on the person, like which one is the strongest?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand your question. So is either a cover letter or a resume more important? Is that
Yeah, like when you like get both of them at once, like do you start with the resume, and if it's a good resume, look at the cover letter, or is it the other way around?
Yeah. So definitely I look at the resume first, and a lot of recruiters look at the resume first, because again, we want to make sure that you at least, like if a specific manager is looking for like 2 years of experience, whether that be with project experience or school experience or whatever that is, we want to make sure that the candidate has that first and foremost. And also, it was mentioned earlier, recruiters don't have a lot of time to really dive deep into resumes and cover letters. And so we really try and look for the most relevant information, which is why it's important to have it as kind of front and center. So whatever, this goes back into telling your story. What do you want the recruiter to really grasp from your experience? The best way that you can do it and make it just like so easy to read. That's why we always stress like bullet points and bolding things. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I definitely look at the resume first. A lot of people do. The point where I would look at a cover letter is if the manager has said like, we want someone who's passionate about XYZ. If I'm not 100% getting that from your resume, then I'll go into your cover letter, and I will see kind of how you expand on those things, because we all know, it typically is only one page for your resume. You can't tell your whole story on that. So your cover letter is kind of a really nice way that you can follow up with that and get a little bit more into the details of what you want to tell. So yes, the resume, then cover letter.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
It looks like we have a question from Grace. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, okay. So I was curious about I noticed when I was looking over resumes, because I'm building mine right now, and does a picture of yourself kind of make a difference to, when you're reviewing kind of the resumes, or is it just really not like that important?
I would say it doesn't make a big difference. In my personal opinion and what I have experienced, it doesn't make a huge difference. If you want to take that extra time and put that on there. I think, again, the most important thing is really utilizing the space that you have to tell the most important information that you can. So if you feel like instead of a photo, you want to put like extra space for an about me or about projects or about schoolwork or whatever that looks like, really figuring out what is the most important information that you want to have. Then if you have extra space on top of that, then you can kind of like, add in some additional things. But I would say it doesn't make a huge difference. The biggest thing is just making sure that you have that experience and the skills to follow up with it.
I have another question. So obviously with COVID, I would say that my personal experience, like recruiting has been really difficult compared to past years. And, getting rejections is completely normal. So I was wondering if you just had like any advice for us to like keep on going and not give up, because it is a very stressful process.
Yeah, and I can imagine. I mean, I remember being a college student and just getting, not even just a college student, like I remember graduating college and trying to find a different position. And you're right, getting rejection after rejection after rejection is, can be very heavy, can lay heavy on you. And I'm sure, especially in, like you said, these COVID times, where there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. I would definitely say biggest thing is, I'm sure that you've heard this too, but just to keep trying. And one of the things that I love to see and what I recommend is really taking some time to like not only apply to positions, but to network. Really utilize LinkedIn, utilize your communities that you have, wherever that may be, because what I've seen on LinkedIn is, if you have like these informal coffee chats, or if you reach out to not just recruiters, I would almost recommend reaching out to managers or reaching out to people who are doing the position that you are interested in, and just saying, hey, I wanted to reach out to learn more about what you do, how you got here, even doing like a search in LinkedIn and seeing alumni from your school and seeing like where they work. Like I know that it can be a challenging process to kind of like go through recruiting. But really, I think the biggest thing will be building your network, because those are the people who are going to remember you when other positions pop up. So the bigger that you can make your network, I know like there's a couple programs out there, like one comes to mind, Consulting, if anybody has heard of them. But their whole thing is about creating a community for students, and really just helping them go through this process. So there are lots of great resources, I would say, specifically on LinkedIn. So yeah, we just got to keep trying and trying. I promise. People are there, we want to help you. So yes.
Thank you. And then I know we're running out of time, but it looks like we have another question. So Riley, if you want to be our last question for the day.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say something really quick. I was just racking my brain trying to come up with something to ask. But you guys have been so informative and so helpful and so thorough. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for being so great. I've learned a lot.
Thank you, Riley.
Awesome. Well, Lexie, do you want to close us out?
Wait, I actually
we
have
have-
one last question, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
So sorry. I was actually so curious about, because I found you guys out, or this workshop through Adobe, reposted it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. How did you guys actually get like associated, or at least create this workshop and like get connected with Adobe? Just out of curiosity.
I started working with Adobe. I actually, am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. Sorry. I was messaged on LinkedIn by, it was a campus agency that helped recruit for Adobe before this past semester. And I just applied for this job and have worked with Adobe for like a year now. And what we do as ambassadors is just spread the word about different Adobe platforms to other students on our campus. And we host 1 or 2 workshops every semester. So I don't know if you're a college student now, but you could definitely look into seeing if Adobe has a campus ambassador platform or program there at your school.
Yeah, Grace, are you attending college right now? And if so, which one?
I'm actually a high school senior about to graduate, but I've kind of connected with Adobe Gen for a little bit, but I was actually like really curious about looking into like actual like at least internships, or if there was like any partnership I could do, and I was just kind of looking around and exploring, so not yet.
Yeah, I'm sure Caitlin can speak to like the internship portion, but if you just like want to integrate yourself more into this community, there's actually an Adobe Creative Career Discord. And so I put the link in the chat to that, and anyone is welcome to join. And it's a really cool community of just a bunch of different creatives, and there's so many different chats on Discord. And in addition to that, all of the ambassadors post about our workshops on there. So that's a really easy way to see what we're up to, because I think Max just hired a lot of people. He's our boss, and I think there's maybe over like 50 of us right now, so there's a bunch of us. And Adobe Gen Create doesn't always repost what we have going on, so the Discord is a great place. And then in addition to that, there is another Instagram account called Adobe CCN. Adobe CCN, and that is the Instagram account that's just for like all of the Creative Cloud ambassadors, which is who we are. And so that's another great platform to follow, and hopefully whatever university you attend will have Adobe ambassadors there, because we usually, like, if this wasn't virtual, we would do events and stuff in person as well. But yeah, those are great places to start. And then I will put my email in there as well, and I'm sure Lexie will too if you have like any questions. Sure. Yeah, we're so happy to chat with you about it.
Yeah. All right, well, if there's no more questions, I don't know, I thought the meeting was gonna kick us out at 6, but it's given us a few more minutes, so. But if there is no more questions, thank you guys all so much for coming, and I hope you guys learned a lot about Adobe platforms in general and just your own personal brands that you can use in the future. So glad you were all here today.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
And yeah, thank you so much, Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Everything you said, like,